Joseph keeps on backing up. At what point can I make a connection with these people? Everybody here has a brain. Anybody here not have a brain? Raise your hand. Okay, very good. So I want to communicate, and I didn't realize when you did that I was going to pick on you. If I want to communicate to this lovely young lady, there are a number of ways I can do it. For example, she just let me know that I was getting too physically close to her. Do any of you know what she did to let me know that? More than that. Want to see it again? Oh, you're blocking. There she goes. Yeah. The trigger was the foot. As I began to get closer to her, she shifted her foot down, which is an indication because it was that foot, although it's on that side of her body, it's attached to that part of her brain, that part of the brain which does spatial reasoning. The part of the brain which does spatial reasoning, especially in social contact situations, registers down, away, predatory behavior. As opposed to, I love you, please come to me. And let's face it, not everybody wants me to come to them. So, if I want to communicate to somebody, anybody on the planet, regardless of where they're from, regardless of the language they speak, regardless of their cultural upbringing, they're going to let me know by the things they do, by what are called psychomotor behavioral cues. We all do them. Doesn't matter where we were raised. Oh my God, getting pictures taken.
Videos.
Now, these things that we do not only show up as we're moving about, they also show up when we're navigating web pages, when we're reading blogs, when we're driving cars, when we're sitting in an airport. They're all over the place. And if you have the wiring that I have in my brain, at a certain point, roughly 1987, you go, we can create some models of this stuff. Because neurologically, the way the human brain works is the same. Everywhere. Everywhere. To a point. To a point. The wiring is the same, barring organic trauma. You can create mathematical models. And the mathematical models that work, thank you, in public, also work online. Just a variation of a few parameters. Because you do realize that when you're online, you're essentially hooked to a lie detector, right? I mean, you are controlling a mouse. You are tapping on keys, right? All these types of metrics, which when I first developed this technology were considered like, why would you want those? Things like time on site, time on page. Back in 2001, 1997, time period of that, why would you want to measure those? Because they're examples of cognition. They're examples of how much the brain is parsing the information. No, they're not. Okay. So, you come up with these things. And you can determine low-level functionality of the human brain. Like, I appreciate this may not seem like low-level functionality to a lot of people, but to me it is. Gender. That's low-level functionality. Pretty much your gender is locked in when you're really young. For a lot of people.
This is San Francisco. It doesn't apply to everybody.
Well, when we talk to clients, can you tell us if somebody on the site is male or female? Yeah, it's a piece of cake. What you really want to know is when they transition. What? Yeah, when they transition. When the male dominant side of the brain says, I'm not going to bother anymore, let the female side of the brain take over. For example, when men shop for clothes online. Because men do this amazing thing. When they're shopping for clothes online, what do men usually go for? Attractiveness to women. It doesn't show on me, I realize. But a lot of times, that's what they do. And how do they do that? They let the feminine side of the brain kick in. And we've said to clients, you don't care when a guy is shopping online for clothes, like at LL Bean or, what's the other one we do? What's that? No, it's Land's End. I'm sorry, Land's End. We say to them, you don't care about appealing to the male side of the brain, you care about appealing to the female side of the brain, because the female side of the brain is what shops for a lot of things in our culture. And they go, no, it doesn't. Okay, go use your own way. Then they come back, it didn't work. Well, use our way. Oh my God. So things like that at a very low level. Then you go to the next level of information processing in the brain. And that's where you get into, well, that's where language processing takes over, where it really does matter what the culture of origin, the language of origin, the environmental rigor that these people were raised in plays an important role. So once you get past the low-hanging fruit, if you will, you know, things like gender, conceptions of truth, age, you know, stuff like that, then you're getting into how do they believe? How do they formalize information? Were they raised in a certain type of environment with certain types of beliefs and then moved? Okay? Now, the wiring in the brain, which we create as we grow in a society versus the kind we're made with, is locked. It's an amazing thing. For example, if you were raised until the age of 4.5 to 5 speaking Sicilian, you will, when pressed or when really relaxed, go back to speaking Sicilian. If you pay very careful attention to how I speak, how I form my sentences after I've had a couple of scotches, you will notice this weird grammar shift, because I will speak Sicilian in English. And I will put my participles way at the end of the sentence. Thank God I'm not German. You know, you wouldn't get to the yes or no until, you know, 5 days. But, I'm not the only one who reads Mark Twain, okay? But language processing kicks in. And then above that, you have the actual psychosocial, the individual information. And that is richly specific. That's where you're starting to talk about, has someone had a certain level of education? Are they really, I'll use a horrible word, engaged? Oh my God. Are they really engaged in what's happening right now? For example, I can tell you right now how many of you are really engaged in what I'm talking about, and how many of you are like, why did Jim invite this guy? Which is an interesting measure of engagement, okay? Engagement in my fields of study is is the brain devoting cognitive resources to focusing the attention to achieving a task. Okay? Now before Next Stage measures engagement, we've been doing that since 2001, our definition of engagement, we had to figure out what attention was. Real simple. Attention is an indication that the brain is processing high-level sugars and protein complexes in enzymatic ways to develop certain structures in the brain which are locking information into long-term memory. Oh yeah, Joseph! No, really, you can actually measure that online. That's not difficult to do at all. It's just a matter of knowing the mathematical way to do it. And so we created this patent. Created 2 fields of mathematics to do it. Wow. Now you're really going, why in God's name did he invite him?
Well, that was the first question. The second question is, so you've been using this capability to know what we're all thinking when we come to a website.
Yes.
So who we are, and segmenting us neuropsychotically.
In some cases, yeah.
And the second question is, so what have you learned about us?
Oh, actually, I was going to suggest as a presentation for the next eMetrics, because I've been coming to eMetrics for about 2 years now. Excuse me. And I think it would be a real kicker to do a presentation on how you folks have changed in 2 years.
Give
What
us
have I
some highlights.
What's that?